Most people quit training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Most of your fellow new students won't be here in 6 months, and even more will be gone within a full year. I've taken a total of 10 months off of training, and I'll share some of my story in this episode. Full transparency, Jiu-Jitsu is one of the hardest hobbies, sports, martial arts, etc. that you will ever do. So on this episode, these are the 10 reasons you will quit Jiu-Jitsu. I'll provide clarity on common pitfalls listeners will most likely experience and strategies I found helpful over my 5 years of training to deal with them in hopes to help each of you stick with it if you truly want to. Welcome to the You-Jitsu podcast. For anyone starting or struggling with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I'm Kevin Pinnell, your salty 50-something-year-old blue belt, and I'm here to help you survive and thrive on the mats. We'll cover everything from fundamental techniques to mental toughness, so if you're ready to roll smarter, not just harder, let's get into it. So let's get into reason number one. It's too expensive. I'm fortunate that I have a steady paycheck, as does my wife, so the monthly cost of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class is within my means. This doesn't mean I frivolously spend $50-$60 at a pop, just getting a bunch of rash guards every few months or a couple $100 on gis, but those are costs you'll need to consider. So let's break that down a little bit. The price of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've looked at different schools, is between, let's say, $75 a month, which is super cheap and probably hard to find these days, up to $200 a month. A gi, or the kimono, the traditional thing you see with the belt, signifies the rank you earned, right? And looking across the market, there are gis that cost $50, and I have one of those, and some that cost over $200, and I have some that cost near that. If you're starting out, get the $50 one. Don't forget to buy your belt. They don't all come with it. There's also no gi, which is more like wrestling, submission wrestling, tight shirt and pants. So tight shirt's called a rash guard. Grappling or fight shorts, no pockets, and I recommend some tight fitting like underwear. A decent rash guard is $30 to $40. Shorts are around the same price. A 3-pack of those grappling undies also comes in around $40. Another crucial piece of equipment that I've learned about the hard way is a mouthpiece. I have a Sisu, S-I-S-U, that's $20. It's minimal, but it protects my teeth pretty well. I highly recommend a mouth guard. You can get a cup if you'd like. That's personal preference. So if you can afford $125 a month and a one-time cost of, let's say, $60 for a gi and a belt, a white belt, because you're just starting, and another $100 for no-gi gear and a mouthpiece, let's say that's $305 to get started, then maintain your, let's say, average $125 a month, which is $1,500 a year, then you can afford to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Reason number two, it's too far. I've known and still train with people who travel quite a distance to train. They do it because where they train is the best in the region where I train with them, right? I am very spoiled. I'm 10 minutes from where I train. So a first critical step for you, if you're looking to start training or if you've just started, is to see how far the closest gym is, or are you going to the closest one? If it's far, on the days you're tired, you feel beat up from the last class, you're not going to want to get in the car and drive unless you are really motivated to get there. Your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training time, so classes are typically an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. There's a warm-up, drilling moves, live rounds, and in addition to that standard time of class time, there's pre-class prep, putting my stuff away, taking my wedding ring off, all that stuff. It's like 5-10 minutes, and post-class prep, and I highly suggest that you travel with some wet wipes or dude wipes or some kind of wipe for a quick wipe down and change out of your gi or no gi gear. It's going to be gross and sweaty. So how can you work around the distance factor? You could ask the professor or your training partners about carpooling, which if you're new, could be awkward because you don't really know them yet. More obvious choice is to find a closer gym. This will be easier when you first start, as you won't have built relationships with your teammates and instructors yet unless you, like a friend referred you and you're going to train with them. So if you don't mind driving whatever distance it is from your home to the gym of your choice, then it's not too far for you and you probably won't quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Reason number three, this is a big one. Whoo, doggy, it's a killer. Imagine, if you will, being a grown man, strong, then getting tapped out easily by someone that's 30 or 40 pounds lighter and less muscular than you. Welcome to my world. This happened to me early in my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career, and it still happens 5 years later. So welcome to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, my friends. Right now, look in the mirror and say, I'm okay with being tapped out by women. I don't mind the teenager wrecking me every week. It's okay that my teammates may promote ahead of me. I'm in this for my personal development. If you can read this statement, believe it now, believe it in 6 months, a year and beyond, then your ego may not get in your own way in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Reason 4, feeling stagnation. In every occupation I've had, and outside of work, hobbies like exercise, drawing, video games, etc., I hit plateaus, right? You get real good, and you're like, man, I'm not improving. I felt stagnant, like I wasn't moving forward anymore. But sometimes I placed blame on others, and that was bullshit. It was me. It was all on me, right? So stagnation in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu happens to everyone at every levels, right? I felt it from white to blue. I feel it now sometimes as a salty blue belt. And I've heard this from upper belts too, right? Above me that have progressed beyond blue belt and above. So how do we move past stagnation and frustrating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu waters? Remember to set realistic goals that fit who you are at your age, your ability, your mindset. You're not going to be the same as the 20-year-old, right, athletic college kid. And you probably could be, I'm 50, maybe more advanced than the older grappler. Or you're certainly stronger than everybody. But do what you can for you, the best that you can. Celebrate small victories. And I don't mean who you tapped and how many times you tapped them out. I mean that you've shown up consistently for a week, a month, and beyond that. Ask your training partners how they do what they do. How do you keep tapping me? How do you keep catching my neck or my arms? Right? Ask your coaches for feedback regularly. This is probably the most important one. Be honest with yourself, right? And refer to reason 3, that ego. Are you stagnant really, or is your ego holding you back? Right? It has done for me. So I can tell you I've had to self-reflect a lot. So if you can wade through stagnant training waters that will exist along your entire Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training path, then stagnation won't make you quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Reason 5, the white belt blues. According to an article on bjjfanatics.com, approximately 70% of white belts quit, and only 3 out of 10, right, of those make it to blue belt. So I've read other places where only 90% of people make it to blue belt. That's a lot that don't stay there, right? So as I stated earlier, early in your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career, you'll lose a lot. It's hard to absorb, right? Especially as an adult. As a white belt, you're learning letters, right? And a new alphabet. This is a common Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu analogy. The alphabet comes with sore muscles, achy joints, and an exhausted mind. So how can you lessen the white belt blues? If your gym has an intro class, sign up for it. Learn the basics and build on them. It's worth the time. That's how I started. If your gym doesn't have an intro class, ask a lot of questions of the people whose belt is not white. They've been through what you're going through. That doesn't mean white belts that have been training a little bit longer than you don't have insight. But it's like asking a journeyman electrician before you ask the master electrician. You know who you're going to get more in depth or maybe more simple answers that are more directly applicable to you. So if you can sing the white belt blues until your belt turns blue, maybe you won't quit jiu-jitsu. Reason number 6, the blue belt blues. This is one of the most well-known syndromes and sayings in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's because at this point, you've been training a couple years or maybe 5 years like me. You know some words in the alphabet, right? But your grammar is still a bit rough, we'll say. Right, a positive and a negative aspect of being a blue belt is more is expected of you, right? You're expected to defend against basic attacks, stop getting caught with your arms out like chicken wings, then getting kimura. Damn, that happened to me last week. Anyway, you should be better than you were at white belt, right? This is the time when you should be able to manage untrained folks, they say, meaning some spazzy human that's trying to get you. It's also a time when some of your teammates will pass you and be promoted. This is also a time another plateau appears in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? So you're building your style, you have legit attacks, you can defend better, and all the other blues and upper belt take the kids' gloves off. It's worth it and makes you better, right? So they're going to roll harder with you because they expect more. This is where I am, and I'm glad because it tests me, it pushes me, right? It makes me keep showing up in the hardest of times, right? And if you can have a mindset that while physically you're grappling with other humans, the real opponent is that from last class or last month or last year, am I better? That's who you're training against. Can I stay calmer? Can I get out of side control? FYI, a great measure of a blue belt that I heard from John Danaher, one of the videos he had online, was if you're a blue belt and you can't get out of a white belt side control, you're not a blue belt. So this is burned into my brain. So if you're a white belt, be real good at getting out of side control. So if you can wear this blue belt, have the blues, keep showing up regularly, you might just stick it out in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Reason number 7, injury and recovery. Since I started training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I've torn a ligament in my thumb, torn my meniscus and had surgery to trim it. And sometimes you have Michael Keaton, old school Batman neck, where you turn your whole body to be able to turn your neck and look at somebody, right? I've gotten more than a handful of bloody noses from knees and a juicy cross face. It's the reality of a combat sport. You get combat related injuries. So how can we reduce the chance of injury? If you're a white belt or older grappler in particular, even you're a woman or both, roll primarily with people that have colored belts, right? They know how to handle the spazzy moves better. And should the need arise, they can help you calm yourself down, right? Whether you realize you need it or not. One of, if not the most important activity outside of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to exercise regularly, lift weights, do yoga, run, anything else that strengthens your muscles and joints. At 50, almost 51, I can keep up with folks that are half my age, right? And it's not because I only do jiu-jitsu. It's because I do jiu-jitsu and lift weights and do these other things I mentioned. It makes a huge difference. I also highly suggest supplements, and these are the ones that I take. Do your thing. Whey protein, creatine, joint support stuff. I take Jocko Fuel products. They have a dramatic difference, right? You will gain more lean muscle. You will recover better. Just really helpful in your recovery and injury prevention. I also get to class early and recommend that. Do some stretches on your own, right? And then stretch after your last round of live rolling, right? The end of class. Do some stretches. Stay hydrated outside of class. Drink a whole bunch of water. Drink water regularly. Certainly take water to class. But you can't expect to stay hydrated if you're just drinking water only at class, right? Because you sweat so much. You'll lose body weight in sweat. So if you can avoid major injuries, or you get injured and come back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class, then maybe injuries won't make you quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after all. Reason number 8 why you may quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the time commitment and burnout, right? This is partially the reason that I've taken a total of 10 months off out of the over 5 years that I've been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because I didn't and sometimes couldn't make the time, and I was in a bad mental space and had an illness in the family. And something that really helped me put this into perspective was a friend of mine and a mentor to me in jiu-jitsu that I trained with, is that family comes first and this cool hobby will be here when I get back, right? It really hit home to me and helped me make the decision at the time, a couple times, to step away from it, right? For me, I had succumbed to the blue belt blues. I needed to work on my mental health. I had to cut the string pulling me to class, just thinking, oh, I have to go, when I had a commitment to my family. And it was worth it, right? It's also worth going back to get the high calorie burn every class, to prove to myself I'm not a quitter, and to see if my mental and physical reset worked, because I put a lot of time in myself in that time off. And so far, I've been back 5 months now and I feel great. So if you can take time you need for yourself and life and feel the pull back to the mats of justice, as Jocko Willink would call them, then maybe you won't quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Reason number 9 is lack of support. Right? While Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu movements are fundamentally the same between gyms, every gym has its own kind of feel environment, right? Some are very competition focused, some are fight or mixed martial arts focused, others are neither, and some are both, right? And so the key ingredient to successful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms that I have seen, that I have enjoyed training at, is that the team members help each other and they're supported by their coaches and the head professor. If during the challenging times I mentioned earlier, you're not supported, lifted up, or give it, even sometimes we need a no-nonsense answer why our jiu-jitsu sucks and why we're not improving, then you might not be being supported well. So this won't be like a positive add to jiu-jitsu training time, and it may lead you to quit, right? When quitting crosses your mind, though, and most likely it will, think about who else supports you. Does your spouse, your kids, your friends? Do you support yourself with your own instilled discipline? So sometimes we need more internal support than external from the outside, right? So if you can train in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu environment that is every person for themselves, which I don't recommend, and I don't know that I've really ever seen that, then maybe you won't quit Jiu-Jitsu if you keep that discipline within yourself to keep going. Reason number 10, and to me this is the overarching reason that I took non-injury time off that overshadowed my burnout, is my life drastically changed a couple times. My priorities became everything other than Jiu-Jitsu, right? I spoke of this at the time, and even referenced the sunk cost fallacy. And this is a fallacy, and it is a fallacy that states that putting time and money and other resources into something isn't working or improving. I found in the reality for me, particularly in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that this comes during the plateaus, right? When our mental health isn't good, our body's tired, we're lying to ourselves on why we're stuck, because we're going once a week, or we're not taking the hard rounds, whatever the excuses are. When you get into Jiu-Jitsu, you'll learn all the excuses that can be made. So if you can train around your life changes and keep Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a priority, or come back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after you reestablish it as a priority, maybe you won't quit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So getting good at something, anything in particular, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu takes time, right? Getting good at an art that requires intense body and mind commitment is no exception. And with time training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu come the issues we discussed today. Justifying the costs, making training time, supplanting our egos. Boy, that's a hard one. Wading through stagnation, earning the white, then blue belt. Because you got to earn the white belt, right? You don't just buy it. You got to show up and step on the mat with people that know what they're doing. Working outside of jiu-jitsu to avoid injury or recovering from the injury and coming back. Working through burnout because there's really no other way than to keep showing up. Feeling supported and make sure you become part of that jiu-jitsu community where you train and then prioritizing training. You can flip these into reasons to not quit jiu-jitsu, right? Justify the cost and save money on other things. Make time for yourself. We all have time. We don't all have the same 24 hours like you see influencers say. I have 3 kids. I'm married. I have 2 dogs. I don't have the same time as a single college student. I just don't. And that's okay. Supplant your ego. Know on day one when you step on the mat, you're at a disadvantage, and that's okay because you're not there to really fight people. You're there to learn, right? Stagnation is you're on a mission and you got to go through this stagnant stage, right? You're going to earn your white belt with all the lumps and bruises that come with it. You're going to be stuck in your blue belt blues for however long that takes, and just then be comfortable with who you are with you. You're going to avoid or recover from those injuries by being proactive outside of jiu-jitsu and stretching and taking supplements. You're going to work through that burnout, right? Of showing up, make it a task. I'm doing this today. You're going to become part of that jiu-jitsu community, and you're going to prioritize training because it is a life changer. It will make you more confident. It will burn a ton of calories, as I mentioned before, and practically it'll teach you how to choke folks, which is a pretty good skill. My hope is this episode provided you some insight on what you will encounter on your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training path, or that it brought back some memories for those of you that have been in training for a few years. Thank you for listening to the You-Jitsu podcast. You can subscribe on Apple, Spotify, other platforms. You know where podcasts are. You can follow me, Kevin Pennell, on X and Instagram at PennellKG, PANNELLKG. Check out the Pennell 5 Fitness Club YouTube channel where I share fitness 15 seconds at a time, cold plunge videos, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class after action reports, so you'll get the scoop right when I learn it. I've been the host, Kevin Pennell, a salty 50-year-old BJJ blue belt, husband, father, garage gym owner, cold plunger, and reminding each of you to keep showing up, and during every Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu session, remember to breathe, frame to make space, and survive to roll another day. Godspeed, y'all.